Her best guy friend ridiculed me at dinner. She deserves so much better than you. I dismantled him in front of everyone. She snapped, "Say sorry, or we're done." I smiled. I didn't speak, but when she came back weeks later, she learned what done truly means. For 3 years, my life with Claire was solid, wonderful even. I'm a lawyer, so my days are spent navigating the darkest sides of human behavior. Coming home to her was like stepping into sunlight. She was a legal assistant, sharp as a tack, with a fierce drive to attend law school and carve out her own legacy. I admired that about her. We were partners, building a future in a home I'd spent years renovating. It felt grounded, authentic. I wasn't just covering expenses for a girlfriend. I was investing in the woman I planned to marry. But there was always a faint hum of unease, a subtle discord. And that discord had a name: Ethan. Ethan was her college best friend, a freelance illustrator who acted like a 9-to-5 was a death sentence. He scraped by designing logos for coffee shops to afford his rent. To Claire, he was her rock, her platonic confidant, the guy who had her back. To me, he was a freeloader with an inflated ego, hell-bent on undermining our relationship. He was slick about it, I'll give him that. Nothing overt enough to call out directly, just sly jabs, veiled insults dressed as praise. Her ex, Ryan, a poet who'd crushed her spirit, was his go-to weapon. If I took Claire on a weekend getaway to the coast, Ethan would weave in a story about some impromptu road trip they'd taken. "Remember that, Claire?" he'd say, all nostalgic. "You can't script moments like that. You need someone who matches your wild soul." The subtext was clear. I was the dull, safe bet, and he was the keeper of the thrilling life she'd left behind. Claire soaked it up. She was completely taken in by his loyal friend act. If I even suggested he was crossing a line, she'd get defensive. "That's just Ethan. He was there when Ryan broke me. He's just protective. He's like family, Mark." I'm a patient man. My job demands it. You don't pounce on the first clue. You wait, let the other side talk, let them build their own trap. I waited for Ethan to hand me the rope. The moment arrived a month ago. I'd just won the biggest case of my career. 6 months of my life consumed, countless late nights, weekends buried in files. But we won. A massive victory for my firm and me. To celebrate, I hosted a dinner party. My closest friends, who hadn't seen me in ages, were there. Trying to play nice, I told Claire to invite her friends, which meant Ethan was coming. The evening was perfect. Good company. My home buzzing with warmth, the rare scotch I'd saved for years flowing. I was actually unwinding for the first time in forever. Ethan, predictably, was reveling in the free drinks, acting like he co-owned the place. A few glasses in, he launched into a performance. A rambling spiel about a gallery show, really just a setup to pontificate about artists versus corporate types. "It's a different lens on life," he said, staring at me. "Some of us chase passion, creativity. Others are more practical." He took a slow sip of my scotch. My friends shot him glares that could sour wine. I gave him a thin smile, refusing to bite. But he pressed on. Turning to Claire with a fake concerned look, he said, "I just want you to be happy, Claire. Mark's a solid guy. Dependable. A provider. Steady." He spat steady like it was an insult. Then he locked eyes with me, a smug grin spreading. "But let's be real. She could do so much better than you." There it was. The rope. The table fell silent, the air heavy. My friends looked ready to lunge across the table. Claire stared at her plate, cheeks flushed, not angry, just mortified by the scene. That moment crystallized everything. The patient lawyer vanished. The man disrespected in his own home, in front of his friends, by a guy mooching off his generosity, took over. I set my fork and knife down deliberately, clasped my hands, and fixed my gaze on Ethan. The gracious host was gone. The prosecutor had taken the stand. "That's a bold statement, Ethan," I said, voice low and calm. "I'm curious about your logic. In your expert view, what does a better man for Claire look like? Be specific. Lay it out for me. Ethan faltered, expecting a shouting match, not a calculated cross-examination. He mumbled. Someone on her wavelength, a creative, someone who gets her. I nodded. So, the key is being a creative, an interesting angle, and I assume you see yourself as fitting that mold? I know her better than anyone, he said, puffing up. Perfect, I replied. So you're the benchmark. Let's test that. Let's move beyond vibes to something tangible, investment. As everyone here knows, Claire's in her second year of law school, a top program with a hefty price tag. I'm covering it, every cent, an investment not just of money but of belief in her, in our future together. So Ethan, as the self-proclaimed ideal for Claire, what have you invested in her future lately, aside from your constant criticism of me? Ethan's face paled. Claire shot me a frantic look. Mark, stop this, she whispered. I raised a hand to quiet her, eyes still on Ethan. I'm not finished. Let's talk about her car. Safe, reliable, gets her to school and back. I bought it. You've got a car too, right, Ethan? That quirky little coupe that's always breaking down. Claire's bailed you out for repairs at least 3 times in the last 6 months, hasn't she? With money from our household account, which, by the way, I'm the only one funding. So, Ethan, I'm not just investing in Claire's future, I'm also keeping your artsy ride on the road. You're welcome. One of my friends choked back a laugh, masking it with a cough. Ethan looked like he'd been punched. And finally, I said, leaning forward, voice dropping, this house, her home, I own it. I pay the mortgage, fix what breaks. You, meanwhile, have been late on rent so often that Claire's covered for you, again, with my money. So let's summarize your case for the table. You argue that a man who provides a stable home, a reliable car, and a fully funded elite education is a lesser choice for Claire, and that a better man, by your standards, is one who leeches off her resources, repays her support by trying to sabotage her relationship, all driven by what can only be a sad, obvious, and frankly creepy obsession. Is that a fair summary of your stance, Ethan? I leaned back, closing argument delivered. The room was dead quiet. Ethan was shattered, a witness shredded on the stand, speechless. My friends glared at him with open disdain. Then I looked at Claire. Her face was a whirlwind of emotions, but what surfaced wasn't relief or gratitude. It was pure, searing rage. She shoved her chair back, the legs screeching against the floor, her body trembling. I can't believe you just did that, she hissed. You humiliated him in front of everyone. He humiliated himself, Claire, I said, voice weary. I just laid out the facts. Apologize to him, she demanded, eyes blazing. Right now. Apologize to my best friend for what you did, or we're done. There it was, the ultimatum, the final piece of evidence. She stood beside a man exposed as a manipulative leech, defending him, choosing him. The love I had for her didn't just fade, it was extinguished. I saw her clearly for the first time. I didn't get angry or shout, I just smiled. A small, sorrowful, final smile. Without a word, I picked up my scotch glass and walked to the kitchen, leaving her alone in the silent dining room. The case was closed. The verdict was in. The fallout from that dinner was immediate. Claire and Ethan stormed out together in a blaze of drama. She moved in with him that night, a choice born of her fury and his humiliation. In her mind, she'd thrown down the gauntlet, expecting me to come begging, to apologize, to fix what I'd broken. She didn't realize I'd simply accepted her terms. For 2 weeks, I went radio silent. I ignored her calls, her flurry of angry, then confused, then desperate texts, and the mutual friends she sent to plead her case. I was invisible. Instead of chasing her, I got to work. My house, once our home, felt like a crime scene. I spent a weekend methodically packing her belongings into boxes, not out of spite, but as a purge. I was an executor closing out a dead relationship. When I finished, I stacked the boxes in the guest room, changed the locks, and updated the security codes. Then I made 2 calls, unpleasant but necessary, the logical consequences of her verdict at dinner. The first was to the dean of admissions at her law school, someone I knew well from alumni events. In calm, professional terms, I explained that due to an irreversible shift in my personal situation, the private fund I'd established for Claire's tuition was being discontinued, effective immediately. The second call was to the senior partner at my firm. I'd pulled strings to secure Claire a prestigious summer internship, a career-defining opportunity. I explained that an irreconcilable personal conflict had arisen and the offer had to be withdrawn. I took no pleasure in this. My support was built on our partnership, and she'd demolished that foundation. She could no longer benefit from it. Exactly 2 weeks after the dinner, she appeared at my door. I watched her on the security camera, struggling with her old key, confusion turning to anger when it failed. She rang the bell. I opened the door, keeping the chain on. She looked rough, her righteous fury replaced by worn-out desperation. Living with a broke, self-absorbed artist had clearly taken its toll. "Mark, we need to talk," she said. "No, Claire, we don't," I replied. "You made your choice. The conversation's over." "You can't throw away 3 years over one fight," she pleaded, tears forming. I was angry. I wasn't thinking. "It wasn't a fight," I said. "It was a moment of clarity. You had a choice between your partner and the guy trying to wreck our relationship. You chose him. You demanded I apologize to him. That's not something I can unsee." Panic set in as she realized I wasn't budging. "But everything we planned," she stammered. "Law school, the internship?" "Yes, about that," I said, letting the silence hang. "Your final semester's tuition is due next week, isn't it? I hope you and Ethan have a plan because my investment in our future is done." Her face went ashen. "What?" she whispered. "And the internship at my firm," I continued, unrelenting. "That offer's been revoked. The firm takes conflicts of interest seriously." She stumbled back, hand to her mouth. The internship was her golden ticket, and her future was crumbling before her eyes. "You can't do this," she whispered, voice breaking. "Mark, please, you can't." "I already have," I said. "Actions have consequences. You gave me an ultimatum. Apologize, or we're done. I chose done. Now you live with the consequences. Ask Ethan for help, the guy who's so much better than me. I'm sure his artistic brilliance includes a plan to cover your $50,000 tuition and replace the career you just lost." I closed the door on her tear-streaked face. I didn't feel joy or sorrow, just quiet. The trial was over. The aftermath was predictable. Claire's life unraveled. She had to drop out of law school months from graduating, her dream dead. She and Ethan are still sharing his cramped apartment, from what friends say, a miserable existence. She's consumed by resentment for what he cost her, and he's trapped with a woman whose bitterness mirrors his own inadequacy. He got her, but a broken version he can't afford to fix. I didn't do this for vengeance. I did it for me. A relationship is a contract, and she breached its core clause, loyalty. My actions weren't punishment. They were enforcement of the terms. She wanted to know what done really means. Now she knows. It means the support stops, the investment ends, and the builder walks away, leaving you in the ruins of the home you helped torch.